The members of Ring Seal strode forward with immense confidence. But as they reached the edge of the island, they suddenly noticed a massive whirlpool that had appeared at some point. Its central vortex was so large that it could easily fit a grown adult. Stranger still, the temperature of the whirlpool felt like a boiling pot of water on a stove. Fish and shrimp, cooked alive, floated onto the shore, turning the entire area into an unexpectedly cheap and delicious buffet of seafood. At the very center of the vortex, a foot appeared, glowing with an unusual light, leaving the members of Ring Seal utterly shocked. Their eyes widened in disbelief. Where was their earlier sense of composure and confidence? Because what they were witnessing was none other than the colossal will projection of Luing. Stepping down from an unseen staircase, as the projection slowly emerged from the whirlpool, everyone had the same thought. Had he just walked out of the vortex on thin air? Without hesitation, Harold, leading Ring Seal, cupped his hands together in a respectful greeting towards the mighty being before them. In his mind, Harold thought to himself, he's become even stronger level 8. Why did he call himself level 8? If this is level 8, then I'd rather chop off my own head and offer it to the Dark Star Martial Saints, a guide. This must be a guide. That higher rank definitely exists. Even if it doesn't, it can't be far off. At this moment, Harold gazed at Luing the way a devout believer would look upon a god descending from the heavens, filled with admiration, fear, and anticipation. Luing's will projection gradually shrank into human form. Now hovering in the sky like a divine entity, he landed gently, hands casually tucked into his pockets, and asked if the group was ready. As he observed them, his mind was filled with questions. Strange. Weren't most of Ring Seal's top experts either dead or injured? How did they suddenly manage to gather so many people again? It seemed Harold had merged forces with the Black Magic Society and the Dark Star Organization. Luing pondered this but didn't voice it aloud. He simply nodded when Harold confirmed that everything was prepared and that they could depart at any moment. Then let's go, he thought. Of course, no matter how powerful the experts of Ring Seal were, none of them could fly over the sea to the mainland. Thus, moments later, Luing found himself seated in a first-class airplane seat beside Harold, holding a subsequent crystal in his hand. Deep in thought, after absorbing all the subsequent crystals, his number of immortal cells had skyrocketed to 278. These subsequent crystals are incredibly effective, truly worthy of being classified as cosmic-grade resources, sought after even by powerful civilizations. As he was lost in thought, Luing was unaware that his energy aura was radiating outward, raising the surrounding temperature significantly. Harold, sitting beside him, was drenched in sweat. Sitting next to this man felt like sitting beside a furnace while eating hot pot under the blazing sun. Even with a meter of distance, Harold could still feel the searing heat emanating from Luing. No, he thought, this isn't just heat. This is scorching. Every breath Luing took felt like molten lava. No wonder the whirlpool he stepped out of had boiled all the sea creatures to death. Deep in thought, Harold was suddenly startled when Luing called his name. Hey Harold, tell me, do you think my punch now could? Before Luing could even finish his sentence, Harold hurriedly clasped his hands together and exclaimed, "And my lord! The energy crystals we gathered from Dark Star and the Black Magic Society. We still have some left." Without hesitation, he pulled out a large bag of subsequent crystals, his face filled with reluctant despair. As if tears were about to spill, Luing hadn't intended to rob him like this. But then again, if someone willingly offered something so valuable right in front of him, wouldn't it be a waste not to take it? So, with a smile, he accepted the bag of subsequent crystals. "Alright then, with this plus what you've already given me, I've gathered about 1 kilogram in total. Ring Seal really is wealthy." He playfully tossed the bag in his hand, completely unaware that Harold was feeling dizzy from the loss. Harold suddenly recalled an old saying from Dragon Nation: being friends with a king is like being friends with a tiger. He had never fully understood the meaning before, but now, it was crystal clear. His head ached so much that he had to massage his forehead. As he glanced at Luing again, he felt as if the man before him had transformed. When standing beside someone who could decide his fate on a whim, it truly felt like being in the presence of death itself, terrifying. That smile of his, It was no different from the sinister grin of the Grim Reaper. Meanwhile, Luing was lost in thought. His rapid growth and power had resulted in many aspects of his strength being beyond his control. He hadn't yet mastered them completely. To fix this, I need more battles, intense battles, to quickly grasp my new strength. Otherwise, even handling simple matters in daily life will be a problem. For example, what if I kissed Dong Qingxue and accidentally burned her lips? That'd be awful, her sweet lips turning charred. Not a good look. And what if I lived with others and accidentally roasted my own parents? That'd be a disaster. I need pressure, more pressure, Luing reminded himself. Last time, the guide mentioned that there were 24 level 9 martial saints on Blue Planet. Now, 3 had died, including Harold. That left only 20. Could these 20 martial saints really pressure me? No, 2 definitely wouldn't be enough. But what about 20? Or 30? That should work, right? Luing was now viewing the entire world's martial saints as potential sparring partners to help him advance. But what if even that wasn't enough? He gazed out the airplane window, watching as sunlight illuminated the drifting clouds while the aircraft sped forward. If that's not enough, then I guess I'll have to place my hopes on the so-called guide. Half an hour later, Ring Seal's plane arrived at another island far from the mainland. Stepping off the aircraft, Luing looked up at the highest peaks on the island. Harold introduced the location, explaining, "This is where we need to be. This island is called Heavenly Saint Island. The World Martial Arts Association named it." Heavenly Saint? Luing mused. I have to say, the martial saints of Blue Planet sure have grand ambitions. What's next? He asked. Harold respectfully replied, "Before the grand event begins, there will be an evening banquet. It's mainly for the level 9 martial saints to interact and exchange information. Additionally, they'll submit lists of items they wish to trade with the World Martial Arts Association. Sir, please take a look." Harold handed over a document listing the items requested for trade. At the top, it was written, "Nourishing Essence," which has a certain strengthening effect on martial soul cultivation, enhancing the Dharma form. The price was 2 caddies of subsequent crystal proportion. Another item was Body Refining Essence, which had a certain tempering effect on the martial body. Enhancing one's physique. The price was also 2 caddies of subsequent crystal proportion. Everything available for exchange was meant for martial saints, with the cheapest item priced at 1 caddy of subsequent crystal. It seemed like he was a 9th-rank martial saint, but his living conditions were miserable. Over 100 years had passed, yet he hadn't even accumulated a single caddy of subsequent crystal. Harold was suddenly questioned and felt completely awkward. His embarrassment was written all over his face. This situation was due to the fact that he had exchanged for a few things earlier, leaving him with very little wealth. However, he still had several martial saint acquaintances who owed him quite a bit of subsequent crystal. "This time, I'll collect those debts and hand them over to you, my lord," he said. Luing couldn't help but laugh. "If you're going to lie, at least make it sound more believable." The old fox still wanted to keep some tricks up his sleeve. However, Luing suddenly noticed a line on the previous paper. A grade 10 will protection talisman, containing the will of a grade 10 powerhouse, which can be actively triggered. Price: 30 caddies of subsequent crystal per piece. Fragmented dark star iron, a grade 10 weapon material, priced at 1 caddy of subsequent crystal per gram. This grade 10 will protection talisman. Just reading its description was enough to confirm that it was the item Zhao Ji had exchanged for and used against him in their previous battle. So Zhao Ji had exchanged these 30 caddies of subsequent crystal from the Martial Saint Association. After spending over 100 years as a human deity in the Dragon Nation, Zhao Ji's wealth was indeed incomparable to someone like Harold, who was merely the leader of a small organization. Many 9th-rank martial saints who had fallen during the previous Dragon Lion battle had left behind inheritances. It wouldn't be surprising if the fat pig Zhao Ji had swallowed them all up. These items were probably just used to pacify the rural 9th-rank martial saints, essentially leftover scraps. The supplier had likely taken out a few pieces of civilization's junk that they no longer needed. Even so, these rural 9th-rank martial saints would still be willing to sell everything they had just to get their hands on them. First, they took 9/10 of their resources, then, they exchanged these worthless scraps for truly valuable resources and handed them back. A brilliant scheme. Only by leaving Blue Planet and stepping into the vast cosmos could one truly understand the sheer enormity of the universe. Lu Xing casually tossed the papers aside and strolled away, thinking to himself, "Only then will I truly stand as an equal among them, as a fellow martial artist." Time passed, and soon, it was time for the evening banquet, in the dressing room, if it weren't for Harold standing behind him. No one would have recognized that the man in front of the mirror was actually Lu Xing. He looked at his own reflection and chuckled. "At this point, even if I stood before my own parents, they probably wouldn't recognize me. My lord, your disguise is absolutely flawless. Even with a changed appearance, you still radiate divine elegance." Harold praised. Lu Xing replied immediately, "No matter how much you flatter me, you still won't get a single gram less of the subsequent crystal you." "Oh me, yes, yes." Harold nodded rapidly and excused himself to enter the banquet hall first. Inside the hall, the atmosphere was already lively. Men and women, dressed in elegant evening attire, chatted and laughed amid soft music. Lu Xing strolled around, noting that everyone here was at least at the Grandmaster level. Both their appearances and martial prowess were extraordinary. This was a true gathering of elites on this planet, far beyond the Chen family's birthday banquet. To his left, he spotted two familiar faces, Dong Shou-ni and Lin Wanwan. "Look at my dear brother-in-law, reconnecting with his martial path. Well done! And that buzz cut, symbolizing a fresh start, huh?" Lu Xing was genuinely pleased for him, but he didn't approach. Instead, he continued scanning the room for more familiar faces, not just one. There were three marshals, still in their military uniforms. Were chatting and laughing together. The Dragon Nation's military was also present, clearly, lacking a 9th-rank martial saint of their own. They were here to help Tan Zhongyu and Lin Jinyu gain leverage. They had even brought out their treasured saber, an ultimate trump card. "That's rare. Should I go and greet them?" Suddenly, a wave of excitement surged through the crowd as many people turned toward the same direction, cheering loudly. "Miss Fiona has arrived! The rose of our alliance!" It wasn't just a person stepping into the room. It was as if a brilliant rift of light had descended upon the gathering, instantly igniting the atmosphere. Lu Xing, standing at the back, heard people chanting the name, Miss Fiona, and raised an eyebrow. She must be something special if she's causing such a commotion. The woman who appeared was dazzling, completely distinct from the others. Her genes were undeniably superior, her beauty breathtaking. Far beyond that of ordinary people, she walked through the crowd, her presence stunning everyone around her. She truly embodied the aura of a king. It was rare for Lu Xing to genuinely acknowledge someone's talent, but in this case he did.